Good. All right. So again, we're going to get a little weird, get a little quirky, and the best place to do that is on Reddit. So one of my favorite subs on Reddit is Data is Beautiful. And on that sub, you're going to find very serious, very beautiful data graphics, and you're also going to find some weird stuff. So this one is search terms in New York around the time of the solar eclipse. The blue line is solar eclipse, and the red line is my eyes hurt. Or this guy who visualized his son's first grade basketball team, and each bar is a kid on the team. That big one is shoot first, pass never. My other favorites are hot potato offense, who has never missed a shot, or high motivation, no coordination, which was me in first grade and is actually me to this day. Or this guy who's tracking his coworker's Diet Coke consumption. And you can kind of picture him in his cube, like ducked down, and he hears that quick, and he's like breaking out the spreadsheet, click. So really, I'm showing you these because we need to think bigger and expand what we consider original research. And we all know, everyone's been telling us this week, that there is so much data. And so many of you are sitting on owned data, and there are great opportunities there. So today we're going to talk about why to consider research at all. We're going to show you some really inspiring and entertaining examples that run the gamut, and then talk about how to get started and how to avoid some common mistakes that we've seen.
So when you guys think about research, I know many of you guys in this room are actually doing it, so I'm not going to spend much time on why research because I think you guys probably know how important it is. Actually, a quick show of hands. Of you guys who are doing research, how many of you guys have found it to be a successful endeavor? Love it. How many of you guys haven't? No, which is totally fine. I mean, that's what I would love to talk to you guys more.
I raised my hand for yes and no.
Okay. And I understand it's a little bit of both, and that's what we're here today to talk about. So, I mean, I can give you guys stats and facts and figures about why research works so well, which I'm not going to do. I have those if you're interested. But at the end of the day, research is really key because it helps you lead the conversation. I talk to so many marketers today, and I hear things like, we don't have anything new to actually say, or we're saying what our competition is saying. This gives you a way to be in the forefront of the conversation and lead that conversation. And I love the way that Margie Agan, she encapsulates this. She says, original research solidifies your position as a thought leader. It's content no one else will have, but everyone else will want to share. And that second part is so very important. It is content that no one else will have, but everybody will want to share. And because you're leading the conversation, what happens is that you're earning backlinks, even in 2008. And how many of you guys are having a tough time getting backlinks in 2008? No one? Okay. Well, a lot of people I talk to have been. It's increasingly difficult to get attention and to get links and so forth. And BuzzSumo did this wonderful content trends report, and they found that a lot of people are having trouble getting links. But what they found was that original research and reference content are the two types of content that get links. And again, I could show you example after example of research that gets links. So if you need that, let me know. So what happens is you get links, you get people coming to your site, you build an audience. That, especially if you do this in a wise way, you have all of these related assets to your research, and you build an audience that wants to hear from you. It's beautiful. As we heard at the beginning, Claire and I used to work for CMI back in the day. We did until last summer, or earlier this year. And one of the things that Joe said, CMI has grown so tremendously, but one of the key reasons for that is for our original research. Lisa Merton-Beets, I don't think she's here today. She leads the program now. She is tremendous. But it's been such an awesome thing to do for our editorial team. And then the last thing, and this is a little bit more anecdotal, a little bit, I don't hear this as often, and actually Lisa just walked into the room. Original research helps you win new customers. If you guys know Andrea Fryer, she's just all about agile marketing. She did her first research project in this last year, and she actually found that there was a clear correlation between you reading a report and customers ready to make a purchase. So it works on so many levels.
All right, so let's talk about, let's get down to the actual examples of people doing research And we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different kinds of research, and the first being polling and mini surveys. So these are smaller projects, and the example here is LendEDU. It's a mortgage refinancing company, and they're trying to appeal to millennials. And they do this by running monthly polls. So these are very short, either a one-question poll or a 3-4 question mini survey, and they're repeating it month after month, and that's really where the value is. So as an example, they surveyed over 600 Bitcoin users, and they asked, how did you fund your Bitcoin investment? Really simple survey. This survey, I believe, had 4 questions. And the results were that most were funding it with a debit card, but the real interest here was that almost 20% were funding it with a credit card. And so essentially people were buying Bitcoin on leverage, right? And this was really interesting to the financial markets. This was huge. It got covered by big publications. It earned them 300 backlinks. And this was a fairly simple endeavor, right? They do it every month. They're running a poll, and not everyone is going to be a home run. And so sometimes people come to us and they're like, we just want to start small. We just want to do one little poll. And really, that's hard to do because you're not sure if that first time you're going to hit it. You're not sure that you're going to get traction. And these guys are learning over time what works and what doesn't work. Analyzing owned data or third-party data. Many of you are sitting on a whole ton of user data. And there's also so much publicly available data. If you don't believe me, go to data.gov and take a look at just what's available from our government of massive, massive data sets. Another place to go is Kaggle. You'll find a ton of public data sets there of people who just share data that they have, and you can scan and see if there's something that's interesting to you. This is such a simple example, and I prefer the simple examples here just to not overwhelm people. This is a texting company, Simple Texting. They took 2 really simple variables. They looked at the cost of gas per state and the average miles of commute per state, and they combined those, and they created this graphic to show how much would you save by working from home. Very, very simple. Got a ton of attention. Now, they actually forgot to put their brand on the graphic. So it was shared all over the place, but they did not get a lot of mileage out of it. So note that. Here's another example, a concierge service. They supply food, beverages to corporate kitchens. And they looked at what are the most popular flavors of LaCroix. And there are people who are obsessed with flavored water, such as Michelle. Yeah. And this was interesting to them. So really, really simple effort here, but using data that they had that was just readily available. Benchmarking surveys. This is what most people are talking about when they talk about original research. And to me, the granddaddy of all surveys is the PwC CEO survey. They've been doing it for 21 years. They are absolute experts in doing this. And if you want to see how the very best do it, this is where you should look. And what's beautiful about what PwC does is that they do the survey, they publish their big report, but then they atomize it in so many ways, hundreds, probably thousands of ways that they use this over the course of a year. And you could imagine, too, that it also informs their consulting business. So in this example, they're showing only responses from Switzerland, so country-level reporting, or reporting by role. What does it mean for HR? What do all of our findings mean for HR? And, of course, also by industry. So obviously, in order to do this, you need a sample size that's big enough. Every time you slice up the data, you're cutting your sample size a little bit smaller. So this is you're going to need more respondents to do something like this. You don't have to do the massive things. You can do smaller ones. In your own industries, in your own business, don't feel like you have to do the state of the industry report, though you can, obviously. You can also slice off a little niche that's all your own. This is an example from Litmus, looking at email marketing, and they combined actually both survey-based research as well as owned data to publish this. Data hubs. This is for companies that are massive repositories of user data. And really, they put data, it's their first foot forward. And many times, almost creating microsites to share insights of what their user data tells them. I'm going to show you an example. I hope I don't offend. I apologize in advance. I just think it's a really funny example, so don't tweet this out. Pornhub has a site called Pornhub Insights. And on that site, they look at their user data, and they are aiming to entertain people with what their user data tells them. So I don't know if you guys, and the site is, I call it somewhat safe for work. You actually can go there, and I promise there's no porn on Pornhub Insights. I don't know if you guys remember the Hawaiian missile alert, right? There was, suddenly people received a text message on their phones, seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. It lasted for about 40 minutes. People were really freaked out by this. And Pornhub was like, I wonder what people in Hawaii were doing. So you can see the little triangle there is the moment the alert went out. It was like, whoosh, people left the site. And then where it spikes up green again is when the all clear came through. What I find actually really funny about this is that some people were starting to like creep back before they got the all clear, right? They're like, I'm going to die anyway, like I'm heading back to Pornhub. So, and this is not, they publish tons of stuff. They take different events, different themes, and they're just, and this gets massively picked up on Reddit. You can imagine that is like their perfect target market, right? Gets so much attention. So it's a great example, but, HubSpot does this too. HubSpot has a data hub where they're publishing customer insights. Finally, assessments. Assessments are sort of like surveys disguised as evaluations. And Skyward does a great job with this. I don't know if you visited their booth. They can do an assessment for you right there at the booth, kind of evaluate how mature you are as a content marketer. And then they realized, we have a ton of data from all of these assessments that we've been doing. The assessments themselves are valuable because they spark conversations. They're a way to talk to your customers and see where they are and kind of start out on where they are in their customer journey and how you can help them. But Skyward said, what if we aggregated all that data and looked at what it told us? And they were able to publish a report from that that was really successful for them. And I like what Rachel Haberman said from Skyward. She said, don't fall into the trap of simply presenting your data as is. Find the story behind your data and what's meaningful. The numbers alone are forgettable. And that's really what Michele and I focus on. We have the data side and we have the content marketing side, and we try to help marketers put those two together. Because often you see someone expert in data or you see someone expert in story, but it really is important to know how to put those two things together. So Michele is the more practical one of the two of us, and she's going to get us started on how to do it.
So the first thing that you need to do is to understand why you are doing research. As we talked about, when you do research, you are leading the conversation. And so many wonderful, wonderful things can happen as a result of this. You can get media mentions and backlinks. You can get, because you're seen as a thought leader, you're invited to speak, you're invited to go on podcasts. You can do guest articles, like we talked about, subscribers, leads, sales. If you do this well, your research can be this editorial cornerstone that flows throughout your editorial for the entire year. So you can do this all with research, but you need to prioritize what is most important to you. And here's why. Like I know Claire talked about a lot of different types of research that you can do. If you are like, we need to get media mentions, that's what our research needs to do. Chances are you're going to be better doing these mini polls and these surveys, these really timely things, and doing these on a consistent basis. Those are the things that work really, really well to get media mentions. But on the other hand, if you are trying to get a consistent stream of backlinks and you want to be a thought leader and you want to build your audience and get sales and so forth, doing these annual benchmarking surveys can work really, really well. So understand your goals so you're putting your time into the right kind of research. So the next thing this question comes up constantly, is what should my research focus on? And of course, this is a very nuanced question, and it depends and so forth. But there are 3 questions that we tell everyone to consider as they figure out what their topic should be. The first one, is this interesting to my audience? If you want to get attention, you have to do something that people actually care about. It's just that simple. And if your audience, if you're trying to get those media mentions and those backlinks from press, your audience isn't your customers or your prospects. Your audience is the journalists and the PR and the publications. So be very clear on why you're doing research and who your audience is, and pick a topic that's interesting to them. The second thing you need to think about is, does this topic align with my brand story? Obviously, super important if you're doing benchmarking research, but equally important if you're doing all of these mini polls and surveys. If you study people like Glenn DDU or Rent Cafe, who does wonderful research, it all aligns with their story. And the third thing you need to consider is, has this research been covered? So, and I know this seems so simple, but if you want to be that source, if you want to lead the conversation, you need to say something new. You need to answer those unanswered questions that people have. So this is really, really key, and we'll be coming back to this because this is also key why research is important, so right here, right now, in 2018. So I love Andy Carcedina, as I'm sure many of you guys do too. And he has this wonderful philosophy if you're kind of struggling to figure out where you should hang your research flag. And he calls it find the stat. So what are those things in your industry that are frequently asserted but rarely supported? How can you guys be the source of authority, the source that people link to and cite as this stat? What are those things in your industry? You can also turn this model on its head and say, well, let's disprove common assumptions. You know, what are those things that people believe but actually aren't true? And this works really, really well if you are doing something that is timely and poll-based and you want to get media mentions and attention. Claire and I talked to journalists in the space to understand what kind of media coverage they would give research. And we do hear those topics that encourage that, like, disprove something, or that are all about, you know, fear and uncertainty and doubt. Those do really well in the media. As Claire talked about, you know, you can certainly do benchmarking reports. This is our research from CMI's content, our State of the Industry report. And Lisa Burton-Beats is here now. She leads up the wonderful research team. But if you are new to your industry, as CMI was back in 2010, it was a very nascent space, which is hard to believe today. But Marketing Profs and CMI, we joined forces and we did a State of the Industry report. We repeated that research every single year, and it has done marvelous things for the business. But if you're in a crowded space, which I know many marketers I talk to are in a very crowded space, find your niche. Chances are a State of the Industry report is probably not your best bet. I love this example from Divvy. I don't know if you guys know Divvy, you know, Brody and Brock. They are a content editorial planning software tool. They're fabulous. And I was talking to Brody. They did their first research last year, and they actually I should have updated the slide, but they just updated their research last week. And I asked him, like, how did you guys figure out what topic to focus on? And he said, you know what? Content marketing, that's been taken. CMI Marketing Profs, you have that covered. So they found their own niche, which is all around content creation. It's interesting to their audience, it aligns with their brand, and it's never been covered. So that's how to think about topics. And even though we're talking about getting started, the next thing I want to talk about is when you think about research, plan your atomization from the start. This is exceptionally true if you're doing these bigger survey projects, but it's true across the board. This is where I think the biggest missed opportunity is with people doing research. They do all this work and they get the report and it does great. They might do one or two things and then it just kind of dies down. So if you want to make a change to your research that you're currently doing, this is it.